So this is your first year in Congress. How has it been?
Great. And people will say, come on, it's so much travel, it's so much back and forth. But you know, when we run for office, we know the job that we're getting into, and I think it's been great. It's been great to get to know all of the district even better. It's been great to get to know my colleagues in the 118th Congress. It's been great to know the issues and how they affect other states and how that might compare to Oregon in the 5th District. And then just work with my colleagues to have solutions to some of these problems that people think we can't solve. And I know it can sometimes look like chaos in Washington, but there's a lot of issues that matter to people here in Oregon that I've been working on. And so for me, I feel like there's so much more to learn. I'm grateful to do it. I'm grateful to serve my country. We have another year to go and then move on from there and do it again and again and again. So for me and my family, I have felt blessed to be able to do this job.
Amazing. Well, I know that your first bill was passed. Do you want to tell me a little bit about this first bill?
Yeah, so when we're talking about the HOME Act is the one, and why it was important to not only the veterans here in Oregon, but homelessness veterans. People who are experiencing, not only they served our country and provide for our freedom, now they need us to serve them. And so this was one way to introduce just a small little amount for them to understand that we care. With the inflation that's happening, it's going to increase their stipend. It's also going to give them an amount of money so that they can maybe purchase some of the essential needs. Not only for the transitional part, but maybe a phone. People don't often think that they would need that, but maybe they need to contact their families or contact the VA and make an appointment. It's going to give them the products that they can go and purchase. So while it's something small, it was important to Democrats and Republicans as a bipartisan bill to get through the Veterans Affairs Committee and then onto the floor to pass, and it was overwhelmingly supported. So I think that that's a testament to everybody recognizes a veteran in their community. Everybody knows a veteran in their community. And if they're experiencing homelessness, how can we help them? That's why it was important to me.
And I think homelessness especially is very big here in Central Oregon and is very important to a lot of people here in this district. What are ways that the federal government can help with the homelessness crisis that is happening in the state?
Yeah, for sure. Again, a bill like that. But we're not talking also just veterans. We know that people will experience homelessness, sometimes often youth. There's a high drug addiction in this state. Mental health crisis is real, and we have to address those. How we can get our funding back here in order to supportive housing, transitional housing, the care that they need. One of the other bills that I am working on and have introduced is the Direct Care Act. And that is getting those services to them where they are. And that's usually if they're experiencing it on the streets. And what I wanted to pair providers and first responders to those people who need help. So the Direct Care Act would bring street medicine in order to assess individuals who need some help and then be able to triage them where they need to be. It would also allow them for first responders and providers to have credit for going into that work, if that's the field that they're going to go into. So I thought it was a good match and a good pair, and so we'll see that move through the House and hopefully also get signed into law. So it certainly, when people see it with their own eyes, they recognize that they want help. So when they reach out to maybe their local electeds or the state, I also want to be an extension of that at the federal level in order to get the funding they need to address those issues.
And you touched a little bit on addiction when it comes to homelessness. Measure 110 is in Oregon. What are your thoughts on Measure 110? Do you think it should be repealed? Is there any other addiction efforts that you think could be better than Measure 110?
Well, certainly it's not just me who believes 110 has been a failure, quite frankly. But we need to come up with a solution. What does that look like? When we see people who are suffering from drug addiction and we don't have the resources or the beds or the facilities to make sure that they're transitioning, 110 didn't address that. When people voted for it, they thought they were being sold something that would work. And what we're seeing is that it hasn't worked. And what now we know is that when you ask people what's the solution, they're telling you, please repeal it. Let's recriminalize hard drugs. Let's make sure that we're addressing the situation at hand. Oftentimes, and I spoke to the governor several weeks ago, I asked her and her team, what can I do? What can I do to help out? How can I be a resource? I don't want to just complain. I want to be a solution maker. That's why people elected me, because being thoughtful and pragmatic and getting things done, people expect that to happen. It's been difficult I think, for Oregonians to watch the failure of this. So I'm hoping that through the legislature, we don't just need more money and more time. We need a new direction. And so I've asked the governor to repeal this, or partial repeal. That's what the voters want. It's been shown in polling. Enough's enough. So I'm looking forward to working with her office. I'm looking forward to working with local electeds to get it handled, because people are suffering.
And I know you've spoken about how important bipartisanship is in Congress, and you really try. Your district is a purple district, one of the few that are left. How are you staying on top of this bipartisanship to make sure that the district might not flip red, might not flip blue, and to just stay in the middle for voters? Yeah,
it's a true swing seat, but it's not just try. We've actually done it. And I was wanting to, 170 bipartisan bills that I have been on. So it's not just trying, it's actually doing. I recognize that I am the first Republican woman ever elected in the state of Oregon. And I have colleagues from Oregon, 4 women, 3 of them are Democrats. I'm a Republican. We have Congressman Blumenauer, who's been there for years, who has a ton of knowledge and experience, who will be retiring. We have Cliff Bentz on as well. I work with my colleagues not only for Oregon, but I also work with other congressmen in other states. I worked on a child tax credit with Congressman Carbajal from California. Why? Because people in my district have come to me and said, you know what, child care is not easy, no matter what the industry is. Agriculture, we heard it in the Farm Bill listening session, that there's a lack of access to child care. We hear it in manufacturing. We hear it with parents who want to go to school. We hear it with police officers. We just introduced another bill for our first responders and law enforcement, that they would get a child tax credit. That matters. That was endorsed by the National Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because it matters, and it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. For the longest time, people didn't probably even know what my party was when I was a mayor. Why? Because I was addressing the issues that matter to everybody in the community, and that's how I approached this office. So it's not just a matter of trying, it's a matter of doing, and I have done just that.
Great. I'd like to sort of transition to a bit more of national stuff now. So kind of speaking a little bit on the bipartisanship, following the trend, let's talk about the House Speaker vote.
So when Kevin McCarthy was unfortunately voted out, I wasn't supportive of that. I thought Kevin McCarthy was doing a wonderful job. He had just passed the continuing resolution on a bipartisan to keep this country open. So that was unfortunate. And then as we moved through the process with Steve Scalise, Tom Emmer, Jim Jordan was the next candidate. Visited with all the candidates to move through, and we ended up with Speaker Johnson. And that happened because people thought, give him the benefit of the doubt, they didn't really know him. He's the Republican Party, we're in the majority, and he could get things done. And so I have expressed to him my values here in Oregon, why Oregon matters, why I want him to pay attention, and what I want to have success in both parties, because it matters here. It matters here in this purple district that I pay attention to the values of Oregon. So I will share that with any leader, with leadership, and I have spoken up against my own party and leadership to say what the values are here in Oregon. So we'll keep doing that. Again, from the bottom up is how we need to do our work.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question was just about that vote and why you had voted for Johnson and what you think he might bring for the state of Oregon.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he doesn't know Oregon, he hasn't been here, but he'll come here. He'll come visit, I would imagine. Just like I tell my colleagues, I want to care about what's in your state as well, because men and women, children, education, law enforcement, public safety, roads, investments, matters. I got a call yesterday from a business in Oregon, and their concern was the rail cars on the southern border are being blocked now, right? So I called my colleague, Tony Gonzalez, who's on the border in Texas in Eagle Pass, and asked him for an update, because we know what's happening on the southern border. And I asked him, so I have to call them and know what matters to them, because it matters to me. I coalesce with my colleagues, Democrat or Republican, to say, can we work together on an issue? Can we work together on a bill that matters to our constituents? They're going to be different in some states, but in other states they're alike. So it's all of that, getting to know your colleagues. It's a people business, understanding what matters to Oregonians, and letting me share why Oregon is so important to me and why I will fight for them every single day.
Thank you. So speaking more on that, I know like you had just said, that you are working with colleagues from all across different states to work on things that both help their state and our state. What are some things that maybe voters can look forward to that you might be in talks with?
Yeah, so we've already done this. Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez from Washington, right across the river, we worked on a bill, the Jobs in the Woods Act. Why does that matter here? Well, because we have a timber industry here that matters. We want to make sure that we're training our workforce and having young people have access to understanding and apprenticeship programs to work in the timber industry. And so for far too long, a lot of our timber towns have been depleted and these small communities need help. So let's get the young people to understand why this is a valuable, renewable resource. So we did the Jobs in the Woods Act together. So there's lots of things like that that we work on. I mean, I mentioned Congressman Carbajal for the child care tax credit. That matters. So I work all the time across the aisle. I'm on Problem Solvers. There's I believe 64 members, I believe, in Problem Solvers right now. That's 32 Republicans and 32 Democrats. It has to be 1 for 1. So I work with those members to say, hey, how do we get bipartisan work done for the people? Let's not get caught up in gridlock, which oftentimes is what you see on TV, on the national stuff. We're really keeping our heads down and doing the work that matters to most.
And you just spoke about younger voters and informing them. I know people my age, a lot of the times they aren't really informed on what's really going on in our federal government. What are some ways that you think younger voters could be more involved to get voter turnout up for that younger generation? You
know, it's how you talk to the voters and how you get access to them. People find their news outlets in very different places. Right now we're going to be on TV. They're reading online. There's social media. We're on all the social media outlets, making sure that we get the message out so that they can understand what the future is going to look like, and they do care about certain issues. For instance, one of the things that I know a lot of young families care about once they're coming out of college is housing. I have twin daughters that are 29 years old, and how difficult it can be oftentimes to purchase your first home, especially with interest rates being high, with the cost of living being high. That matters to a lot of young people, how they're going to view what their future family could look like if they don't have one yet. Can they buy a home? Can they buy a car? Can they put gas in that car? Can they buy the groceries that they're concerned with? So all that matters, and I want to make sure that they know that I'm relatable, because I was young. At one point, it feels like I'm not so much. I was married, been married for 32 years. I know what it was like to not be able to purchase my first house and have to rent for quite a while we were in school. I know what it's like to raise twin daughters and then be concerned. One is married, so there's a dual income there, and maybe she's easing, but one is still single and thinking, I still have roommates at 30 years old, because there's real concerns about being able to afford it with a full-time job and a college education, and it's still very difficult. So I want to make sure there's access for young people to not only go to a four-year school, but the apprenticeship programs that are available, that there's certificates available in their local industries, and marrying them up. Right over here, Central Oregon, OSU Cascades has great programs for determining what are the jobs in the community that are available, and then what is their degree going to offer them when they're finished with that, and how can they layer those degrees, still work at the same time, still have a family if they want to, and still have a job that they can start to make money while they're earning those degrees. All of that matters to me.
Great. And speaking on some topics that younger voters care about, I'd like to sort of transition to reproductive rights and abortion. First, I'd just like to ask your opinion on abortion. I know it's a very divisive topic right now, especially in Congress. What is your stance on it?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be divisive or somebody afraid to talk about it. You know, I'm a woman, I'm a mom. I've raised two girls. I know what it means to carry life. But it's been brought back to the states, and that's what the Dobbs decision did, and it should be held within those states, and let the states decide and have access. So anything that comes to a federal level on the floor, I will refer back to the states. We are not going to be making decisions that I won't speak up about, and there will be federal legislation I'm not interested in. It needs to be handled in the states, and that's what the Dobbs decision did.
And do you agree with how Oregon State is handling that topic?
Yeah, for sure. Oregon needs to decide what they want, that there's access, and they have codified that in law that they want access to reproductive health care. And as long as Oregonians speak up about what they want, that's what I'll stand by.
Great. And then another question, I guess, is the impeachment inquiry. You voted in favor for this inquiry into President Biden. Kind of tell me a little bit about why you voted for this impeachment inquiry and what you're hoping to come out of it.
Yeah, the question, there was some confusion about, is it an impeachment or the inquiry? It's just an inquiry.
Okay.
I am not for the impeachment vote as if it was to happen today. I think the answers need to be, or the questions need to be answered, and that's exactly what those committees are doing, and my colleagues are asking those questions. And every time a question gets asked, another answer begets another question. I have a good friend of mine, a colleague, a freshman colleague, who is a New York former detective, who's now a member of Congress with me. And he said, Lori, there's no investigation that you would ever stop in the middle when answers keep coming out. And I think that that's what I have left that to do. I'm not on any of those committees that are asking those questions, but what my colleagues have asked is that they would like to ask more questions, and this is going to allow for that. So I did vote for the inquiry to continue down that road to answer those questions, and then it'll determine if there is a formal impeachment. But at this point, I wouldn't stand for that or vote for that because we have not had all those questions answered just yet.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I guess sort of a last question here for voters. Will you be coming back to Central Oregon anytime soon? Can we expect you here?
Of course. It's part of my district. I think this whole year, we have been here 10 or 12 times. I try to come home every weekend. It's about a 6-hour flight to get home, and certainly when I land in Portland, then drive over. And we're going to try to switch that up where we can land right here over in Central Oregon and spend the weekend. You know, the accessibility is important to voters, and I want to be accessible to them. We've done teletown halls where we reach more than 4,000 people on those calls where they can ask questions. I do weekly calls with constituents. Was just in Portland doing an event, meet and greets in the district. Was here yesterday meeting with several Jewish Americans who are very concerned with what's happening in Israel and wanted to visit with me about that, and then spoke to another large room last night. So that's what's important, is to get to all those. I'm accessible. I love my team. I have an office here in Redmond. I have an office in Oregon City, and then of course in Washington. And my team, when I look at the cases that we closed, 486 cases closed, $521,000 returned to Oregonians, 19,953 letters and emails sent to constituents, 13 bills introduced, and 175 bipartisan bills. So I'm listening to the constituents, and I'm doing the hard work. And being held accountable is important to me because I hold people accountable. I love this job, and I'll continue to be accessible to everybody.
Well, great. Thank you so much again for sitting down and doing this interview with us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Isabella, and I'm glad that you're in this business.
Thank you.
You did a wonderful job, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great.